What's up, everybody? It's O the Realtor, and today we're going to talk about FHA 203K renovation loans. Now, most people know about the regular FHA loan, but today we want to talk about the renovation loan because it's a great option for some buyers who are looking to buy a home, and you can buy something that is distressed or it needs repairs, and you can take the renovation cost and the cost of the loan or the purchase price, roll it all into one loan, and it's a great option. So I brought my special friend here, Dawn Messina.
Hi, everyone.
Not only an awesome realtor, fellow realtor, but has went through the actual process personally. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So Dawn.
Yes, yes.
What's up?
One of my favorite loans that nobody uses. Part of the reason why nobody uses that loan is because I think a lot of times people are discouraged by their lender.
Really?
And yeah, because if you think about it, the more hurdles you have with a loan, the less likely you are to close. And there's some pitfalls that you can fall into when it
Gotcha.
comes to 203Ks.
Okay.
One of the things that is a requirement, the number one issue, is people that do not pick a contractor that has experience processing the type of paperwork that's necessary for 203Ks.
That's great. So, all right. So to people who have no idea about the 203K loan, it's a renovation loan where you are still able to use the FHA low down payment because
Right.
FHA loans, you're putting down 3.5%. Typically, when you're doing a renovation loan for an investment property, it's obviously more expensive.
Right.
So let's start there. So let's start for the beginning of the process.
Right.
So the first thing, if you're gonna find a home, you're gonna find a home that needs repair. Typically, a regular FHA loan is not going to qualify
Correct.
for that. So that's why they made this renovation loan.
Right.
So when you find your home, let's start there. So when you first find the home and you get the offer accepted, what's the first thing that you had to go through? Did you have to get a contractor in to look at the repairs first?
To be successful, that's what you want, because the contractor has to put a bid into the loan officer.
Gotcha.
Everything has to be approved.
Got it.
So you have something called a HUD consultant. So the
Got
HUD
it.
consultant essentially is the person that goes in and says, yes, based off of what the contractor is saying, this is actually possible, it's feasible.
Right.
And they make their tweaks. So first thing that you need is you need a quote.
Okay.
You need something that they can say, oh, it's going to be $100,000 of repairs. It's going to be $20,000 repairs. And there are also, it's worth mentioning that there's two different types of 203Ks. One that falls below $30,000
Yep.
and one that falls above $30,000.
So there is a minimum of for the ones that fall below 30. There is a minimum of 5,000, from what I understand. Now, with the contractor, this contractor has to be approved. Has to be HUD approved. Correct?
Not necessarily HUD approved. I think that I believe, and I have to check on this, they have that qualification potentially with the VA loans, right?
Okay.
With the VA renovation loans.
Okay.
What qualifies a contractor is having the right, depending on the scope of the work, having the right insurance, having the correct workman's comp. It
Okay.
really just depends on the scope of work. If your scope
Okay.
of work is cosmetic, your contractor doesn't necessarily need workman's comps and things of that nature. And that's why picking the contractor is the number one most important thing that you can do in the process.
Okay. We're putting in the offer for the purchase price
Correct.
first. From there, with your lender, once you put in that offer, how soon do you need to have that scope of work into your lender?
It depends on just what the parties agree to. The faster, the better.
Got it.
Oftentimes, the reason a lot of 203Ks fail is because they notoriously take longer, right?
Right.
The only reason they take longer is because we don't make the correct choices when it comes to, and again, people are going to listen to this and they're still going to want to use my cousin, whoever,
Right.
contractor, right?
So-
Who does beautiful work,
Right.
but he doesn't have workman's comp.
Got you.
And you're renovating a house from the bottom all the way to the top. So he's going to have all of these separate contractors. He's going to have to manage all of those. And so that's really the reason why things take longer, because you're really waiting for the contractor to come back with a bid and the bank to go back and forth on that particular bid.
Okay. Okay. So, and we're going to get deeper into that part of it because a lot of people may not even understand it as far as what you just said, but for the average first-time home buyer.
Sure.
But if you're going to go in, you're going to buy a distressed property or property that needs repairs, use the FHA 203K. Once you get to the point where everything is approved
Yes.
from the lender, You have the purchase price. You've already had the seller accept the offer. Now you've sent in your bid for
And
repair
in
costs.
addition to sending in the bid, the contractor has to send in their credentials, right?
Yes.
So the
Yes.
bid is approved.
Yep.
The HUD consultant says, and the underwriter says, you're going to need this, this, and this, meaning you're going to need this type of insurance. Of course, you have to submit all of your documentation to show that you are licensed.
Okay.
You just cannot, you cannot get through without that documentation. So once they submit that documentation and you have your scope of work, it's seamless.
Okay.
It's just like closing any other 203K FHA.
FHA. Okay. Now you have 6 months to have the renovations complete.
Correct.
From the time of everything being accepted. You have to complete these things and move in 6 months.
You
correct?
do. Depends on the scope of work.
Okay.
Nice thing about that too is, for example, if you're thinking, okay, well, I have to live in one place, wait for it to work for 6 months. I'm going to be paying mortgages in two places. You can
Sure.
actually mortgage in as part of how you're fleshing things out. That's 6 months.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So you can actually have your bank pay your whichever one of the two. Actually, most of the time, it's not most of the time. I'm sure all of the time, it'll be wherever you're moving to. You're mortgaging in your monthly payments moving forward. So you're
Meaning that
not out of pocket.
You're
paying
not
for
putting
both.
in. You're not.
I didn't do
you're not
that.
spending the money.
I didn't do
at
that.
the
I was
time.
paying rent and I was paying my mortgage at the same time.
Okay. Well, tell me what made you choose a 203K loan? What made you do that versus finding something that was already done? Like what made you do that?
I have very unique needs. It was just me and my daughter, and I also have very specific taste, right?
Aha, there you
And
go.
I thought it would be easy for me because I'm a realtor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did not follow the advice that I'm giving people now when it
Okay.
comes to picking the contractor. I picked a contractor who I had seen their work. He was a contractor, but
Mm-hmm.
had never gone through the process,
Got it.
right? So when you've never gone through the process, all of a sudden now you have to get workman's comp for certain things. That can be expensive. That can be
Okay.
costly for the contract. The other most important thing is if you are doing the 203K, the extended one, which is above $30,000,
Above 30,000. Okay.
you have to fund the first percentage depending on what your draws are up
Right.
front. So now you have a contractor that has to, without getting a dime from the bank or a dime from you, you're actually not allowed to give them money, right? To get the work started. They have to start the work without getting a dime from anybody.
Okay. So you have to fund.
They have to fund, they have to be able to
The
self-fund
contractor themselves have to self-fund the
first initial
beginning
correct.
parts of the work. Okay. So, okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you decided to do it
Yes.
because of the specific taste. Everybody says they have specific taste, but you got to have a certain level of motivation
Yes.
to really say, I'm going to go
Well, I love my
that
house.
route. Of course. I mean,
I love my
seen
house.
It's incredible.
So
It's
it was
incredible.
a unique house, and it needed a tremendous amount of work.
Sure.
And I knew of this product.
Sure.
I was very close with my lender, and I was an experienced realtor, so I thought I could do it. I mean, I did it, but
Okay.
it was not without its challenges.
Okay. So we know why you did it, right? How long did it take for the renovation? altogether?
Exactly 6 months.
Oh, exactly.
He
6
told
months.
me 3 months. It took 6 months.
Oh yeah, always.
But I
always
doubled it in my
expected.
mind, so I
Right.
already knew that was going to be the case.
You already expected it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this was during COVID in my instance. So you had a lot of different changes in timelines. COVID was March of 2020.
Right.
I closed March 6th, I believe, of 2020. COVID happened 2 weeks later.
What are the pros?
Having a product that you love, knowing from scratch what's gone into your house.
Yeah.
I know the plumber. I've seen the plumber. I've seen the work. I've seen
the
my
work.
house. And again, the scope of mine was probably more than what most people would do.
Sure.
But my house has a new roof, new plumbing, new electric. I know all of the issues, of my house.
Inside and out.
Inside and out.
Yeah.
So that's a very, that's a good feeling to know that.
That's a great feeling.
It's
You
a
know
great
what's
feeling
behind
to
the
know
walls.
that I know what's behind the walls, and it's also finished perfectly to my taste.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
also now very experienced, way more than I was before when it comes to
Right.
construction. Right.
Right.
A lot of my investors, when they renovate something, they are, I won't say cutting corners, but they are making decisions based off of making a profit.
cutting corners. Yeah. Just keep it a bean, as
Right.
they say. Yeah. They're cutting corners.
When you're doing it for yourself, you're not cutting corners.
Of course
And if you
not.
do cut corners, you know which corners you cut.
Right.
So you can
Right.
anticipate your own, BS based off of your own decision making.
Okay.
So
So
that's the biggest pro
that's the biggest
to
pro.
me. Yeah.
What is the biggest? Now again, this is more. I really want first time home buyers. All of this, some of this may be intimidating to
Yeah.
some people, but those are great pros I think
Yeah.
to think about because a lot of people when they're buying their first home have particular taste,
Yes. Yes.
and want certain things, or want a house that's renovated maybe better than the average,
Correct.
right? So I think those are incredible cons. I mean, incredible
Pros. Yeah.
pros.
Yeah.
Now, what is the con? What would be the con for you in the process?
Buying a house is already very stressful.
Right.
And so if you're going to take this on, and again, people are still going to go against my advice, you have to make sure that you have people that are experienced all throughout.
Okay.
Right.
So now that being said, what would be your advice to someone who wants to do a 203K loan and needs to get a good contractor? What would be your advice? Should they call around? Should they find someone in particular who is 203K specialist? I mean, is that the place that they really should put the effort in from the beginning? The contractor.
The contractor that I eventually ended up going with was referred to me by my bank.
Really? Okay.
And if you think about it, that's probably one of the better sources because the bank has processed contractors' paperwork.
Right.
And
Okay.
the bank is also there to see whether or not the client was satisfied. Right.
Talk to your lender.
Talk to your lender. Realtors are also the next best source, but a
Sure.
lot of times realtors don't have that experience because most people don't end up doing this project.
Right. That just underscores the point again that you have to first start off the contractor. The contractor has to be the right type of contractor with the right experience for this even to work. After that, the other part I wanted to talk about was managing it. So that's the other part that some people may be ready for, they may not be ready for. If you are somebody who works a 9 to 5,
Right.
who isn't available all the time,
Right.
is this something that someone who has a typical work schedule can handle? Is it a good idea for them to try to handle it themselves, or is it maybe a good idea to have someone, maybe have a contractor who can also kind of manage that and make some decisions for them? I mean, what do you think?
A contractor is not going to make a tile decision for you, right? A contractor will give you guidance, but you have to go out there and pick all of these things. What if the thing that you pick now means you're going to have to wait 6 weeks for it? Now you have to make a
Great
different
point.
decision.
Great point.
So you have to look at it like you're having a baby, meaning you have to get used to the fact that you are going to be uncomfortable for a while. It's like literally like having a baby. So once you wrap your mind around that inconvenience, and you keep your eye on the end goal, yes, you can work and still do this. I mean, I've had clients that used my contractor, Steve, who's tremendous, and they'll call me and they'll say, Steve, an attorney friend of mine, actually, she was very funny. She called me. She was like, Steve is crazy. He thinks that I do not work. I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, you do not want Steve picking. Yes, he's got great taste.
Right.
But Steve doesn't want you coming back to him talking about something. You change your mind.
You better choose your own
Own things. So it's absolutely doable, but just like anything else, things like this are going to be inconvenient, and you just have to be okay with that.
This is what you signed up for.
It's what you signed up for.
Essentially, when you're going to do a 203K, a renovation loan, it's just like if you were, let's say, flipping a house. But you're flipping
But
it
you
for
care way
yourself.
more.
But you care way more because you're flipping it for you.
Yeah. So once you get into the transaction and you get your offer accepted, a lot of times people start to realize that they are not about that life. Once they start looking at internal plumbing and the scope, they do tend to shy away from it once they get into it. So knowing yourself and knowing whether or not it's something that you actually really want to do.
Okay.
What I recommend that people do, right? I think that these are the perfect candidates for 203Ks.
Okay.
People that are somewhat, if you've had some experiencing finishing a basement, finishing a kitchen, if you are a little bit handy, right?
Okay.
I don't mean handy adjacent. I
Right.
mean really, really like you know how to do some things in a household.
Right.
You really are. You're level 1. Not to
Okay.
say everyone else can't do it.
Sure.
But you have to really, really know yourself. Do you have the intestinal fortitude to go through all of this?
go through it.
Because some people think they do, and then they say this is too much.
And they don't. So, do you think realtors should encourage, if you're showing buyers homes and they're looking at stuff and they're like, oh well, I like this house or I like that house,
Yeah.
it's fully renovated, but Do you want to show them other options that need work before even knowing whether they have the intestinal fortitude to go through it? Do we want to show people these type of properties? What is your opinion?
You know, one of the fact finding things that I do with my clients is I hear what they want. I expose them to as much of what they want as possible for them to realize whether or not, oh, this is just too much for me, right? So that's part of, as you know, that's part of the process. What you think you want at the beginning could be something you totally different at the end of
Right.
it, right?
Right.
And so the more I expose you and the more I watch you through the process and the more I listen to you, the more I can kind of guide you in the right direction.
Sure.
So it's not a one size fits all. It also depends on the market. If we're in
Right.
a market now where, for example, right now,
Yeah.
everything needs some amount of work.
Everything needs
You know,
work. Yeah.
part of one of the solutions to that should be considering a 203K.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
that's part of the solution to that.
Sure.
If the vacant inventory where homes have not, we don't have a plethora of renovated homes
Yeah.
are not available.
Inventory's tight. Yeah. Exactly.
So it's a combination of knowing your client, properly guiding your client,
Right.
knowing whether or not your client is going to take your guidance to make sure that they're successful,
Right.
and what the market conditions are.
Yeah.
So if
absolutely.
the market conditions make sense for you to do that,
Yeah.
then absolutely. If they don't, then I would guide my client differently,
Yeah.
along with what I know about them.
Now, that makes perfect sense. I mean, really educating your client, I think, comes down to it because people don't have knowledge about the process
Right.
and their options when they're getting out here. And one of the things that I always think is interesting about 203K or positive about it is that, you know, with the FHA loans, regular and 203K, you can buy 1 to 4 families, right? So if you're going to get into your first home and you don't want to do a single family, they are good for multifamilies. And there are a lot of multifamilies that need work. So it may not be a total gut type of thing, but it
Right.
may be something that just cosmetic stuff. So
Right.
there may be opportunities there where you can find a 3-family, 4-family at best, or even, like I said, even a 2-family, where you can do some reno to it, light rental to it, and get into the property with the low down payment. When, at what point do they do the appraisal with the FHA 203K?
When did they do the appraisal? Do you know what? They do the appraisal the same time in the regular 30 to 60-day period.
So are they? So are
And
they?
they're doing the appraisal based off of the after renovation value. They're
Okay.
looking at what you guys are saying you're going to do to the house.
scope. Gotcha.
Because the bank needs to know that actually once everything is said and done, the value is there.
It's gonna be there.
Is there,
Okay.
right? I'm not going to give you $100,000 if the value is not going to be there.
Okay.
It's too much of a risk for them.
Got you. So the bank initially knows. They know what the purchase price is, obviously, because you've done that.
Yeah.
Upon accepted offer and all that, but they're gonna do their appraisal based on the scope of work,
The after renovation value.
and they're gonna get the
Correct.
ARV from there.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yep.
I thank you for covering these
so
things.
welcome. Thank you for
this
having
is,
me.
you know, for the average first time home buyer, the FHA 203K is definitely an option. It's very important, like Dawn said, to make sure you have a good advisor. So as realtors, this is what we do, and your team consists of not just your realtor, your lender, your lawyer, your contractor,
Your HUD consultant.
and your HUD consultant. You know, you got to make sure you have a good team around you. So if that's something you want to look into, you know, again, information is your friend. I'm O the Realtor. What's your name again?
I'm just Dawn, the realtor.
Dawn the
I
Realtor.
don't have a kitschy, cool name.
That's cool, Dawn the Realtor. That's it. That's what's it. So thank you for tuning in. And my email, Instagram is all in the link below. Be blessed.
Thanks for having me, the realtor.
You're more than welcome.